That's amazing. So I'm jealous. I think that's one of the first times I've ever said that in my life. We have been banging our heads against the ground on the mobile home world for 2 years. Um, I went to a mobile home boot camp. A buddy of mine called me up, said, I have an extra ticket. It was, I happened to be snooping around on your website. I saw, I believe we went to the same one. I don't know if at the same time or not, relevant. But a buddy of mine called me and said, you got to come to this thing. I got an extra ticket, come. So I said, yeah, you know what? Let's do it, right? What do I have to lose? Got on a plane, flew to Austin, went down there, touring properties in Austin, Texas. I looked at my friend. I said, I'm 30 years old at the time. I said, if someone would have told my 18-year-old self that I'd be touring mobile home parks in Texas, people would have put a different script on that template. Like, what are you doing in a mobile home park at 30 years old in Austin coming from New York? Yeah. But I left that event. I flew home, sat down with my partner. I said, we are buying mobile home parks. I mean, Chris was in the office. I said, these things are fucking great, man. They're great deals. Fast forward that, we own 2. We have a proof of concept 7-unit that I bought that it's already made its money back. It's a little deal. I mean, we just said, like, let's figure it out. And we have a 40 lot park. And the goal that I came up with was, I want to own, 2,000 lots in a year. And we've missed that brutally. But I love this space. When you fell in love with it, whether it was on that fix and flip or the boot camp or, touring deals, now you have 17 parks, and that's amazing. Can you speak to, getting out of the fix and flip world? Because I think a lot of people, that's their vision out of the box, and going over the mobile home park world, and was it the fix and flip on those 2 parks, or whether the flip on those 2 parks? What was it that, sort of said, this is where I want to be?
Yeah, there's really 2 things. When I owned those individual mobile homes and I was marketing them, to sell them after we had, put in some new flooring and painted a couple of them, we put them up for sale. The demand for those homes was off the charts. It was like insane. Literally the phone was ringing off the hook for the inventory we had. So, I knew demand was very, very strong. And it seemed like supply, if you have good, housing that was in good shape, supply was limited. So demand very, very strong. Supply also, when I learned about how it's very hard for a municipality and zoning to get a mobile home park, a new mobile home park development approved, when I learned that supply was limited, it just seemed like, an Econ 101 home run. That's what you look for, right? So demand was very strong. They're not building very many new mobile home parks because it's very, very hard to get them approved, through zoning and all that, because it's a loss leader basically for the municipalities, from a money standpoint. If you have a regular mobile home and you have 2 kids that go to public school that live in that mobile home, it costs on average $12,000 a year to put a kid through school. And in these mobile home communities, the taxes that they're paying are very, very small. Literally, it's like the registration on your car. It's done through the DMV. So it's like $40 to $100 a year taxes that they're paying, but they have 2 kids going to public school that are $12,000 a pop. So that's why municipalities, amongst other reasons, a lot of people don't want to live next to a mobile home park, the whole not in my backyard deal. So it's hard to get them approved. So supply is limited. More mobile home parks are torn down every year than are developed. I think there's something I read about, around 100 mobile home parks are redeveloped every year for higher and better use, whether that be multifamily, or some other use. And only about 10 mobile home parks are developed every year. So supply is shrinking, demand is off the charts for affordable housing. It just was a great fit. And I decided to just become obsessed and go all in.
That's it. So that's awesome. And obviously I put the 2 thumbs up, sidetrack, I just confirmed the wire instructions for a closing. So that's got to be a good sign.
Hey, congrats, man. That's awesome.
But
Let's get the money first.
Exactly, right? I tell you, hey, even when we get the money, it's got to clear, and I got to be able to take it out and use it before it's closed. But I think what you touched on, I think, is the most important. Why my eyes lit up when I went with my friend it was the supply and demand factor, and the overwhelming amount of mom and pop ownership, right? Because the space that we're in, we compete in an extremely competitive environment, not only with mom and pops, but with professions and institutions. And, we were speaking yesterday about that $20 to $50 million deal. They're great. We've done them. We own a couple of them, but there's probably better opportunity in the $2, $5 to $12 million space. And the mobile home side, when I heard that stat, like you said, hundreds of them, get demolished a year and go away. There's only quote unquote 45 or 50,000 database mobile home parks that they have record of. You're losing 100 and really nothing's getting developed. And the stuff getting developed today is very, tiny home-esque. It's very unique, which is a whole nother product, which I think is really cool.
Community.
So that supply and demand, bottom line in any business, right? Supply and demand. Last bottle of water, you need it. You're going to pay me for it. And when you go to the mobile home space, that supply and demand gets like a gasoline added to the fire when there's no such thing as affordability anymore in this country. I mean, our C-class apartments rent for $900 a unit. That's a very expensive rent to the median income of this country. So when I heard it, I got super excited and I went pedal to the metal, and I went about it the wrong way, just not really putting the right systems in place. But that supply and demand thing was the thing that just got me excited. You took better action. I took, I'm a bull in a china closet, so it takes me a little while to get going. But no, I think that you nailed it. I think anyone listening here, that supply and demand factor with the affordability component, that's why my eyes lit up. So I think that's super interesting, and just that's what got you going, which is exciting.
Yeah, I mean, that's a big part of it, and then also the mom and pop deal that you touched on. I think it's about 80% of mobile home parks in the country are owned by mom and pops, meaning that they've owned them for a long time, usually 20, 30 years, and they have a lot of equity in these things. So they're more flexible when they decide to sell, which during the next 5 to 10 years, a lot of baby boomers are starting to retire, and they want to sell these assets. So they're more flexible. They're willing to offer, financing and terms on the sale of these assets, and you're able to just pick them up with easy upside. A lot of these mom and pops haven't raised rents with the market. They haven't, made occupancy at the top that it could be, because, to them, if they don't owe any money on it, the last thing, usually the pop is the guy that was doing the rehabs. A home would go vacant. It needed some new carpet and paint. He would do that himself when he was younger. Now that he's 75, 80 years old, he's not doing that as much. So he'd leave the home vacant. And, as vacancy gets down towards around 70, 75%, they're still cash flowing. They're still making money because they don't have any debt on it. And, when we come in, we can buy these assets, optimize them, through filling vacant units and raising rents up to market. And another big factor that we do is we bill back for water sewer expense. A lot of these parks are master metered, and the park just includes water with rent. So we can come in, use a system like Metron Farnier or ABT, and put individual meters, sub-meters on all the homes, and start billing them back for their usage. And, that is a huge way for us to increase NOI. And, we build up to a refinance point, pay back all our investors their initial capital, plus a great return. And then our plan is just to hold these things long term. We think the value and the cap rates on these are just going to continue to drop as the supply gets more and more limited.
That's why, like you said, like when I first bought my first apartment complex, we sub-metered it, right? And the value add component 7 years ago, that was being done, but, or billing back water. But a lot of older landlords still, they don't do that. It's like, give me $800 and they just pay all the expenses out of that. And the new switch is that. So it's the low hanging fruit is so easy to grab. And a lot of states, when I say regulations, there's nothing wrong with going in there except for maybe the personal side, but there's nothing wrong going into a $200 lot rent and raising it to $400 like that. Because a lot of month-to-month tenants, you have so many things that help you get your income up so quickly. Now, yes, right, wrong, indifferent, truth serum. Is it right to take someone's rent and double it? No. Can they afford it? Maybe, maybe not. But a lot of the times the tenants living there, no, they don't have a choice per se. Where they're going to go, their rent's going to be higher. So you have such wiggle room. Is there, in your mind, when you look at a deal and you see that, do you guys have any thought about that? Like, hey, we're not going to push it that aggressively, or more often than not, you have to make a living too for your investors, for yourself. Do you guys have anything that you speak about there? Because I know that, the boot camp I went to, people protested there. I'm sure they might have done the same if you went to the same one. But people think that raising rents like that is ridiculous. But if the market rent's $500 and you're charging $200 and you raise it to $400, that's still a good deal for those tenants. But can you speak to that? Because that happens so frequently that rents are so low that there's just so much upside right there alone.
Yeah. So, in my opinion, raising rents $100, $200, in a single year is a little bit excessive. I think more than a little bit. That's excessive. So we've never done that, and we don't plan on doing that. I do know some other bigger operators that have, gone that way with their rent increases. But where we find a lot of our value add is through increasing occupancy, bringing in homes, and then, doing modest rent increases, right? Over a few years as we execute our business plan. That has been, very powerful for us. But I also own my own mobile home transport company. That was one of the pain points that I noticed early on, is that I would have to rely on a third party to, stick to my schedule. And it was delaying the speed at which we could execute our infill plans. So now my driver, the toter truck, moves into a park, lives on site, and, buys mobile homes and brings them in, and they install them and everything. So we can control that process now. And, we gain more value add through that process than trying to, be more aggressive, I would say, with our rent increases.
It makes sense, right? Like if you have, let's say 75% occupied property, 25% of your lots are vacant, you can raise your current tenants 200, or you can fill a lot at 300. And it does the same thing without causing an uproar at the park, which, would be the approach that I would probably take as well. Because your occupancy alone and billing back water, those two numbers are big numbers to the bottom line of a park. So you don't necessarily have to go up, and uproot people's lives. So it makes a lot of sense. I know there's a lot of people that don't do it that way, which, I'm not going to tell someone it's the right or wrong way, but I happen to agree with that is that component.